Hi everybody, my name is Casey. Welcome to my channel to those of you who are new, and welcome back to those who have been here before. So if you've seen any of my other content, you know I love talking about the Great American Songbook and the Great Forgotten Songbook. But who were some of the key players? Let's talk about the composer Richard Rodgers. As we delve into Rodgers' work, it's important to recognize the significance of his contributions not only to theater of the time, but the impact on today as well. Think about it this way. Without Richard Rodgers, we wouldn't have the Disney movie musicals we know and love today. Let's dive in. Richard Charles Rodgers was born on June 28, 1902, and died on December 30th, 1979. Rodgers was a composer best known for his work with Lawrence Hart, followed by his work with Oscar Hammerstein II. Rodgers was born in a well-to-do Jewish family. His father, Dr. William Abrams Rodgers, was a prominent physician, and his mother, Mamie Levy, was an amateur musician who really encouraged his musical interests. Rodgers began taking piano lessons at a young age, displaying a natural talent for music. By age 9, he was already composing simple songs. As a teenager, Rodgers spent his summers at Camp Wigwam in Harrison, Maine, where he further developed his musical skills by writing songs and performing. Rodgers attended DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx, where he continued to hone his musical talents. After high school, Rodgers enrolled at Columbia University, and in 1919 he met Lawrence Hart, who would be his first major collaborator. While at Columbia, Rodgers was involved with writing songs for the school's varsity show. Richard Rodgers met Lawrence Hart at Columbia through a mutual friend, and their early collaborations included songs in amateur and student productions. They achieved their first significant success with the song Any Old Place with You, which was featured in the Broadway musical A Lonely Romeo in 1919. The show opened July 10, 1919 at the Schubert Theater and featured music predominantly by Sigmund Romberg with lyrics by P.G. Broadhouse, among a few others. The plot centered around a man who finds himself in a humorous and romantic entanglements, which was pretty typical of the lighthearted musicals of the era. The production enjoyed a successful run, contributing to the post-World War I Broadway boom with its blend of catchy tunes and comedic elements. The show really helped launch the careers of the young Rodgers and Hart with their song Any Old Place But You, marking their first contribution to Broadway. Rodgers and Hart worked together from 1919 through 1943, with notable works including The Garrick Gaieties in 1925. This revue's success really established Rodgers and Hart as significant figures in musical theater. Their song Manhattan really became a standout. Then in 1927, they wrote A Connecticut Yankee. It was based on a Mark Twain novel and featured songs like Thou Swell. It was considered a major success. Then in 1936, they came out with On Your Toes, which was particularly innovative for how it integrated ballet into musical theater, with the famous Slaughter on 10th Avenue ballet sequence. Then in 1937, they wrote one of their most famous works ever, Babes in Arms. It included enduring songs such as My Funny Valentine, The Lady is a Tramp, and Where or When. Then in 1940, they came out with Pal Joey. This musical was particularly notable for darker themes and complex characters. Songs like Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered became classics. Together, they were really known for lyricism and melody. Hart's really witty, sophisticated, and often poignant lyrics complemented Rodgers' memorable and varied melodies. Their songs ranged from lighthearted and humorous to deeply emotional and reflective. They also used innovative storytelling practices, pushing the boundaries of musical theater by creating songs that truly advanced the plot and developed characters, helping to set a new standard for how music could be used in storytelling. All good things come to an end, and unfortunately, in the late 1930s and early 1940s, Hart's health and personal issues really led to a decline in productivity. Their final collaboration was the musical By Jupiter in 1942. Unfortunately, Hart passed away in 1943, marking the end of their partnership. Rogers soon began a new, highly successful collaboration with Oscar Hammerstein II. Rogers worked with Oscar Hammerstein II from 1942 through 1960. They had previously been acquaintances, and Rogers and Hammerstein had known each other for years before they began collaborating. Both had established reputations in Broadway, their families were part of the same social and professional circles, and they both had the Columbia connection. Ultimately, Green Grow the Lilacs was their first collaboration together. In 1942, Rogers was really interested in adapting Lynn Regg's play, Green Grow the Lilacs, into a musical. Hart, due to his condition, was unfortunately unable to commit to the project. So Rogers approached Hammerstein, who was incredibly enthusiastic about the opportunity. Ultimately, this turned into their first collaboration, Oklahoma. Their first collaboration resulted in this groundbreaking musical, Oklahoma, which premiered on Broadway in 1943. It was a landmark musical in and of itself. It was completely revolutionary in the way it integrated song, character, and plot all together. It featured songs that more than ever before advanced the story and truly deepened the character development, which was a major departure from the loosely connected songs and plots of most earlier musicals. It was a critical and commercial success. Oklahoma was a huge hit, running for 2,212 performances in its first run, and winning a Pulitzer Prize in 1944. It set brand new standards for musical theater and really established Rogers and Hammerstein as the new kind of it creative team, right? Rogers and Hammerstein continued to collaborate on numerous successful musicals, including Carousel in 1945, which was known for its emotional depth and honestly was pretty dark, with songs like If I Loved You and You'll Never Walk Alone being knockouts. Then in 1949, they wrote South Pacific, addressing issues of racism and featuring songs like Some Enchanted Evening. It won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. In 1951, they came out with The King and I, which explored cultural differences and included memorable songs like Getting to Know You and Shall We Dance. Then in 1959, they came out with one of the most well-known musicals today, The Sound of Music. It's one of their absolutely most beloved works, featuring songs like Edelweiss, My Favorite Things, and Climb Every Mountain. Their partnership ended in 1960 with Hammerstein's passing. So, kind of a brief synopsis of their final years together. The Sound of Music came out in 1959, and this was their last full-length musical. So it premiered on Broadway in 1959, major success, major hit, tons of songs that we all know and love today. Then Hammerstein's health started to decline during the production, and unfortunately, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Despite his illness, he continued to work together as much as possible. Edelweiss turned out to be the final song Rogers and Hammerstein would write together, and it was included in The Sound of Music and is a hit song that became an iconic part of their legacy. Rogers did continue to work in musical theater after Hammerstein's death. He typically continued to write the music and occasionally contributed lyrics. Notable works included No Strings in 1962, for which he wrote both the music and the lyrics, and he had a few other collaborations with other lyricists on projects like Do I Hear a Waltz in 1965 with Stephen Sondheim. Rogers' work with Lawrence Hart and Oscar Hammerstein II are typically considered to be an integral part of the Great American Songbook. I will say, though, his works following Hammerstein's death are not as clearly defined on whether they would be considered truly part of the Great American Songbook era. Everyone is more than their work. So what was Rogers' personal life like? Rogers ultimately married Dorothy Bell Finer on March 5th, 1930. Dorothy was a writer and interior designer, and they were married until his death. They had 2 daughters, Mary and Linda. And Mary Rodgers Goodall also became a majorly successful composer in her own right. Her best-known work was Once Upon a Mattress, as well as her children's book, Freaky Friday. Isn't that a funny connection? I think, they recently came out with, Freaky Friday 2 or something. I don't know. The movie, of course. Anyways, Rodgers did face significant health issues throughout his life. He struggled with depression and had several nervous breakdowns. Later in life, he also battled cancer and had a laryngectomy, which left him unable to speak normally. Like his collaborator Lawrence Hart, Rodgers also struggled with alcoholism, which really impacted his personal and professional life. Despite his health issues, Rodgers continued to compose music until his death. He worked on several projects, including collaborations with other lyricists. Rodgers died on December 30th, 1979, at age 77 in New York City. His contributions to musical theater and popular music left an incredible mark. He was the first person to win all 4 major American entertainment awards: an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. An EGOT. As well as a Pulitzer Prize, making him a significant figure in the history of American entertainment. Rodgers had an incredibly prolific output. He composed over 900 songs and 43 Broadway musicals. His musicals were also incredibly innovative. With Hart, and then later with Hammerstein II, he introduced new standards for storytelling and character development in musical theater. Rodgers' collaborations, especially with Oscar Hammerstein II, created some of the most beloved and influential musicals in history, including Oklahoma in 1943, which revolutionized musical theater with its integration of song, character, and story. Then Carousel in 1945, known for its emotional depth, dark themes, and complex characters. South Pacific in 1949, tackling issues of racism and prejudice. Then The King and I in 1951, which explored cultural conflicts and understanding. Also, last but not least, The Sound of Music in 1959, which was one of the most popular musicals of all time, regardless of composer. Straight up, one of the most popular musicals, which was later adapted into a beloved film that I'm sure most of you have already seen, probably a dozen times by now. Rodgers also had a major impact on popular music. Many of Rodgers' songs have become standards and have been performed again and again by numerous artists across generations. He also was known for his innovative melodies and harmonies. His music combined these memorable melodies with innovative harmonies, contributing to the evolution of American popular music. He also had a major influence on future generations of composers, lyricists, and performers in musical theater and beyond. His broader influence really focused on the themes and specific storytelling aspects he used. Rodgers' musicals often address societal issues, human emotions, and really complex characters that make them relevant and thought-provoking even today. He also had a major educational impact. His works are studied and performed in schools and theaters around the world, ensuring that new generations appreciate and learn from his contributions. It's all fine and well to talk about someone's impact, but what's the real significance of his work today? How does he impact our lives? So Rodgers' work with Hart and then Hammerstein set a new standard at the time for storytelling within the musical theater realm. This change not only defined musical theater standards, but changed the course of music history itself. As songs within theater became more focused on storytelling within the framework of a show, it really set in motion the divide between music meant for the theater and popular music. That full divide didn't happen immediately, but rather their work, the work of Jerome Kern before them, laid the groundwork for that eventual separation to occur. The increased focus on storytelling in musical theater settings also set standards and the format available for Disney to later adapt into their movie musicals. Ultimately, Richard Rodgers was a famous composer most prominent in the 1920s through 1950s. His work with Lawrence Hart and Oscar Hammerstein II irrevocably changed the musical theater landscape and paved the way not only for modern theater, but the creation of the Disney animated movie musical form. His influence on American culture cannot be understated. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of the series, hit that subscribe button, bell for notifications as we have more coming out. Are you familiar with any of the shows we talked about? What's your take on The Sound of Music, maybe? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.